Hi everyone, I'm Arshita. This video is regarding my Python lab assignment from upgrad. Here I will be presenting the solution approach and Python implementation code for a problem. As per my order of agenda, firstly we will be seeing the problem statement, next solution approach using brute force method and optimized method using sorting. Finally, the code using Python. Starting with the problem statement, we have a given list as input which contains positive and negative integer elements. We have to find the pair of elements whose sum is closest to 0. We can also assume that the sum can either be positive or negative, but absolute distance from the sum to 0 should be considered to find the sum closest to 0. Next, we can assume the possible sum of any two elements in the list is 10 to the power 9. There are 3 test cases that I have taken to come with the final code. Brute force method. Here I have defined a function closest to 0 and given a parameter num as input list. In which will min sum with a large value 10 to the power 9 is initialized. There are 2 for loops that iterate over all possible pairs of indices in the list. Then in the for loop we calculate the sum of the elements at first for loop index I and the second for loop index j and store it in current sum. If the absolute value of current sum is smaller than the absolute value of minimum sum, we update minimum sum and the pair with the pair of values with the current values. After examining all possible pairs, we return the pair with the sum closest to 0. Python code for brute force method. This is my code. Inside the function, n is the length of my list. If n is less than 2, then I return invalid input. Else, minimum sum is initialized as 10 to the power 9. Then 2 for loops. Inside the for loop, current sum is num of I plus num of j. If current absolute value of current sum is less than absolute value of minimum sum that was initialized at the beginning, then the minimum sum value will change to current sum and the pair will be changed to num of I and num of j at that iteration. And this will happen till n values. Finally, the pair that is considered at the end will be passed out as an output. The data structures used here are list and tuple. The time complexity of the algorithm is O of n square, where n is the length of the input list in this algorithm. Next, the optimized method using sorting. I have defined a function minimum sum pair which has a parameter passing through it as input list, sorted input list. It checks if the list has at least 2 elements. If not, it prints an invalid input message and returns the message. Else, we go inside, keep we have two index variables for left and right index. Initialize the index variables I as 0 and j as n minus 1, and variable sum is array in ith element and array in jth element. The function enters a while loop that continues until I is lesser than j. Inside the function, inside the while loop, if the absolute value of sum is smaller than the absolute value of minimum sum, we update minimum sum and pair with the current values. If sum is negative, then I increases, else j decreases. The Python code for using sorting method. In this function definition, we find the length of the array, we find the length of the list used. If n is less than 2, then we give an output as invalid input. Later, we initialize I with 0 and j with n minus 1. The minimum sum here will be first element and the last element. While I is less than j, we go inside this loop, while loop. The sum at this point will be first element and the last element inside the list. If absolute value of current sum is less than minimum sum, then the value of minimum sum will be changed to the sum, current sum. Minimum I value and minimum j value also will be changed. If sum is less than 0, then I will be incremented, else j will be decremented. Finally, we will return the pair that is available. Data structure used is list and tuple, and here the time complexity of this algorithm is O of n log n, where n is the length of the input list. Thank you.